People are saying that as we've entered 2021, there is way too much wrestling on television to keep up to date with, and to them I say, you're probably right, because here we are on Wednesday. It's the first proper week of the new year, and we've had a Raw, we've had 2 new Japan shows, we've had Impact Wrestling, there's AEW, there's NXT, and then Impact have Genesis on Saturday. I mean, it is absolutely crazy, but isn't it fun? I say yes. I mean, you just have a choice on how you do catch up with all of this. You can actually watch them, or you can stare at me through your television screen or your computer screen, whichever one you choose to do, and I shall always tell you what went down in the world of wrestling. And of course, Impact Wrestling is back, and a quick shout out to all those people that messaged me going, Sam, I can't believe you stopped doing Impact Wrestling. So they were acting like Impact Wrestling fans, but had no idea that the company took the last 2 weeks of 2020 off. Ah well, who cares? I'm Simon from WhatCulture. Let's up those downs. Impact is such an interesting wrestling show, isn't it? As I already said, it did take a fortnight off just to recharge its batteries, and then you tune back in, and there's a bunch of new dudes to get you all excited. We start with Blake Christian versus KC Navarro. There's your couple of new guys who are also taking on Crazy Steve and Ace Austin, because all of these guys are going to be in the Super X Cup tournament come Saturday, where yes, we have Genesis. And Impact must have some plans for Christian, and I'm sure KC Navarro as well, but in the first quarter of this match, Christian was doing everything. He was whipping everybody's ass, and any time he saw an opportunity, he was just flying around the place. And at one point, he not only did a Spanish fly, but then he flew up to the top rope and hit a frog splash. It was lovely. And it was just one of those matches where everybody had hit around about 70,682 moves, and it all built to all of them doing dives out of the ring. And if you were quite at that point and you listened really intently, somewhere you could hear an old school wrestling fan just dying on the floor. Of all the people as well, Crazy Steve hit a DDT off the second rope onto Navarro to get the 1, 2, 3. And what I took from all of this is that now he will not win the tournament come the weekend. And given how excited the commentators were to see Ace Austin back, he hasn't been around for a month, I'm going to say that he's going to win. This was a very fun opener, not a bad way to start your show. Just adrenaline and action, it can have it up. We then had our weekly Tony Khan and Tony Schiavone commercial, and I love all of these. I'm not sure you can continue to do them on every single episode, but my word, they're fun. This time they were adamant that without AEW buying these commercials, Impact probably wouldn't be able to pay the bills, and Tony Khan especially was all wound up because he is sick and tired of Don Callis walking around going, if it wasn't for me, there wouldn't be such a thing as All Elite Wrestling in the first place because I pulled all the strings. Tony Khan disagrees with that, and who can blame him? They also promoted tonight's episode of Dynamite, and I'm going to say that maybe on that episode of Dynamite, given that we've got Kenny Omega versus Phoenix for the AEW World title, maybe we're going to have the next step in this story, say Gallows and Anderson invading the show. I mean, I've just pulled that out my ass, but wouldn't it be nice? Talking of all these four as well, they were then all on their bus, and they were basically going, hey man, we're all the champions, we're the best, everybody else sucks, won't it be great when we take over pro wrestling? And I was like, yes, it probably will. Promo from Sami Callihan was next, because in our main event this evening, we are going to get Sami taking on Eddie Edwards, and he was in his hacking suite here, as I'm going to call it, and it kind of sounded like he wanted to kill Eddie Edwards, and given their history, maybe he will. It's then time to keep some of our 2020 stories going, because Joe Doring and Cody Deaner are out here, and of course towards the end of last year, Eric Young got in Cody Deaner's head, and now he's gone doolally, including here shaving off all of his hair. Now I get this is meant to paint him as a bad guy, but I'm like, oh man, sweet, he's part of the Bald Brotherhood. So straight away, he's my favourite new wrestler. They were also taking on Cousin Jake and Rhino here, and that kind of made me laugh a little bit, because those two dudes have been waiting for this match since 1691, but it was all fine. That's mostly because it just ticked all the necessary boxes. Jake is really upset because he was screwed over by his cuz, to the point he couldn't even actually properly attack him here. It's like, oh my gosh, you're my family, I love you. While Rhino stood on the outside saying, would you stop mucking around? Just punch him in the face. This also gave us Joe's first proper in-ring match, and we needed that. And of course, because Eric Young was on the outside, he caused the distraction. Deaner then whammed Jake right in the balls, and that allowed him to get the 1, 2, 3. And I know this whole distraction thing is becoming very overplayed in wrestling, but what do you want me to do? I don't control it. I gave that up in '94. There was some fracas afterwards because the bad guys started to beat down the good guys until Tommy Dreamer ran down to save everyone and then got on a microphone and said, look, here's what we're gonna do. We are gonna have a super duper death match at Hard to Kill, us three versus you three. And a small part of me was like, why the hell would they agree to that? They just won a match, not really fair and square, but they still won, but we'll get it. And I'm sure it will be, well, I'm sure it'll be absolutely barbaric. But that's the whole point. Amazing then too, we got a carry on from that security guard that had ripped Moose's shirt. I'd actually forgotten that was happening. But he was being interviewed here, and his real name is Matthew Palmer, and not that unsurprisingly, he's not very passionate about being a security guard. He's passionate about being a professional wrestler, and therefore he's taken Moose up on his challenge to have a match. Are you crazy, bro? Are you crazy? You know one. He's the Moose. He's gonna kill you. Instead, though, he said he didn't mean to rip Moose's clothes, but if he did just run home with his tail between his legs, what would that make him? So instead, he has accepted Moose's 3-minute challenge to see if he could survive. And I thought he actually was gonna get murdered, but we went in a very different direction to that. Somehow, too, the whole Who Stopped Johnny Bravo storyline is going on. I mean, why? Why? Someone write it down on a postcard and just throw it into my face and I'll read it and hopefully it'll have the answer on it. I thought we were done. I mean, Larry D already said that it was him. He's now in jail because the cops wouldn't get involved and they had a match instead. It's lost on me. It just is. I don't really think it worked back then, so why the hell you keep doing it now, I don't know. AC Romero is on the case though, and he went to talk to Johnny Swinger about this, and Johnny like, well, it wasn't me. Maybe you should go and talk to the Knockouts. I mean, maybe you should just sit down and play Nintendo. Down. Donna Brazzo was then out next with Kimberly, and she's getting ready for her match against Taya Valkyrie, which of course is going to go down at Hard to Kill. And you know the deal with all of this as well. She was really mean about Taya, so out came Taya and her friend Rosemary and said, look, Donna, you may have had a great 2020, but do you know what you didn't do? You're not the longest reigning Knockouts champion ever. That was me, and because of that, I've just thrown stats at you, and it also means I'm going to win. There's no correlation there, but it was her point. Piotr responded saying there's going to be a very different kind of matchup because when that was going down, she had friends such as Johnny Bravo and Johnny Impact, and what she really needs to do is just prepare to have her ass whipped. Ty then got in her face and went, no, it was fine. It was every setup you've ever seen, but do I think it will be pretty good? Yes, I do. What was more bizarre is what followed, because Rohit Raju and Chris Bay have decided to team up again. Have they just forgotten what happened at the end of 2020, especially Rohit? Chris Bray screwed you over, man. You need to think about what you're doing. But yes, even though they are still a little bit suspicious for one another, they're so desperate to reveal that TJP is actually manic, they're going back to that well. How do these two schmerels not learn? To be fair to them though, they did have a really good idea. So they found TJP and they went, shut your mouth, you fool. We want a tag team match, us two versus you and Manic, and we've got a funny feeling you're not going to be able to make that happen because of course TJP is Manic. TJP wouldn't bite though and said, look, we don't get along, but I'll do my best, as if it was Bruce Wayne and Batman. And obviously what will happen here is that somebody else will play Manic under the hood, but that could be quite fun. It will build to a big X Division title thing, maybe a 4-way. So it's fine, I suppose, is aight. Tennille Dashwood was then chatting to Rosemary, and Tennille is still desperate to find some kind of a new partner, even though the tag team tournament is going to be ending in a couple of weeks. But yes, she chose Rosemary, and Rosemary was not interested, and let her know this by telling a knock-knock joke, which is as good a way as any to turn anybody down. Caliber the K also freaked out during this because they thought he was getting dumped. And like, dude, it's not all about you. You need to calm down. And I suppose that at Hard to Kill, or maybe even Genesis, we're going to get Rosemary versus Tennille Dashwood because somebody said no. Following up from that, it was then Nevaeh and Havoc taking on Jordynne Grace and Jazz in the semi-finals of said tournament. And I thought all of this was really good, and it had a surprise ending. It was just pure power the whole way through, and especially Jazz. Like, I assumed that she was preparing to retire before somebody from Impact Wrestling rang her up and said, hey Jazz, we've got a spot for you, and she was just throwing fools around here. I thought she looked really good. I also like the team of her and Jordynne Grace, which is why I was stunned, I tell you. Stunned when they lost. Like, if you had demanded for me to make some kind of prediction, I wouldn't have said that. Instead, Havoc gave Jazz the Tombstone Piledriver. Jordynne Grace had been taken out, so she wasn't able to make the save. 1, 2, 3, and that's it. It's the end of the road. Havoc and Nevaeh go into the finals. And of course they're going to be taking on Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz, so that'll be quite interesting given their characters. And I sat there watching going, well, surely this has to mean that at one of the events that Impact has coming up, and they've got loads, it is going to be Jordynne Grace versus Jazz. And then 10 minutes later, Jordynne Grace found Jazz and said, you know what would mean a lot to me now that we can't be tag champions? Why don't we have a one-on-one match? And that's what they're doing. So I felt so proud of myself, I predicted it. What do I win? Nothing. It was an interview with Rich Swan and the Motor City Machine Guns next, and they just hate Kenny Omega, they hate Luke Gallows, and they hate Carl Anderson. They think that they suck, and after they got jumped a few weeks ago, they're now going to make amends, and they went to find the bus that all these guys were on. Unfortunately, it was a very bad idea, and once again, they got their asses kicked. The most interesting part, though, is that when Rich Swan was doing his part of the promo, he absolutely focused in on Kenny Omega, and when Kenny Omega was doing his beatdown, he made sure to give Rich Swan an extra shot. So surely we're going to get that world title match at some point, and if Kenny Omega wins and does start collecting these belts, you can call me a happy Harry. It's exactly what I want to see. Also, Rich Swan versus Kenny Omega in 2021, that's all right. And then Impact Wrestling, I swear, they do not care. If somebody comes up with an idea and it tickles anybody who's in charge, they will just do it, and I kind of respect it. Because you may remember, Kimberly and Deonna Purrazzo had hired James Mitchell and told him, go and find Sue Young and, stop her being this crazy demonic person. We don't like it. They found him here and they said, look, have you done it? And he said, well, kinda. And then out of a room came Susan. And yep, you heard that right. She is now dressed like, I don't know, a business lady, and maybe she's going to take over Impact Wrestling. But I couldn't believe it. I don't know whether it's good, I don't know whether it's bad, because I don't know where it's going. That's the thing with all of Impact's twists and turns. You need to see how they're going to evolve over the weeks and months. But I don't think any other wrestling company would have done this. But they wanted to, so they did. I mean, maybe it ends with her using her business acumen to take on Tony Khan. It literally could do it. Impact is such a strange, but you gotta give it to them, fun company. And then I liked what was next. Old school wrestling business. Up. Because it was this 3-minute challenge with Matthew Palmer taking on Moose, and as you will not be surprised to hear, Moose just absolutely wrecked this guy. Like, he could have pinned him 100 times, but he didn't want to. He wanted to inflict pain, and he wanted to inflict hurt, because he was so sad about his ripped shirt. Eventually he did get bored though, so he decided to hit the lights out, but at that moment, out came Willie Mack, and it was just his music playing, and Moose was so worried about this, he forgot what he was meant to do, the timer ran out, so technically he lost, because Matthew Palmer had survived the 3-minute challenge. Now, it was a little bit goo-goo gaga, especially because this distraction is just happening over and over again, but I like the fact we gave Willie Mack something. Willie Mack versus Moose is going to happen in an upcoming pay-per-view, and you just know that Willie Mack is going to have his ass handed to him. At least here, he got a little bit of something, and I suppose it may help Matthew Palmer. I mean, he didn't do much of anything, but still, it was fine by me. Ethan Page was then talking to Karate Man, even though Karate Man is Ethan Page. What did I tell you about Impact Wrestling like 3 minutes ago? They will do whatever the hell they want. Somehow, too, they are going to have a match at Hard to Kill, and I don't understand how that's going to go down. Like, are we meant to think that it's two different people, or is it just going to be Ethan Page kicking his own ass? Once again, I just need to wait and see. I can't make a call on this until I've witnessed it myself, but honestly, you sit down with Impact and you just never know what they're going to give you. Sometimes it's really serious, and sometimes it's just a big pile of goof. Maybe that's why it works for me. It's kind of how I see myself. The main event was then Eddie Edwards versus Sami Callihan, and because they fought so many times before, you knew this was going to be alright because they've just got such good chemistry together. What I did not anticipate is that we didn't really get the match, and in fact, 10 minutes before the bell even rang, they just absolutely killed each other with, well, any kind of weapon they could find. I mean, this went on for so long, I think the referee forgot what his job was and just became a fan, but when he finally did get them in the ring, they wouldn't obey any of the rules, so it only went 2 minutes, the referee got thrown down, he went, you know what, screw it, and he threw the match out. We weren't done here either, because my word, Eddie Edwards had the upper hand at one point, and he was gonna smash Sami Callihan in the head with the bat, when all of a sudden the hacking thing started to happen, and as it had transpired, Sami Callihan had kidnapped Eddie Edwards' wife, Alicia, and she was trapped somewhere backstage. I was a little bit like, Eddie, you didn't know this happened to your wife? You suck. He sprinted off to sort this, but he should have known better, especially when she was going, Eddie, it's a trap, Eddie, it's a trap. But Ken Shamrock jumped him, beat him up, and then because Sami Callihan is a crazy person, as well as Kenny, I suppose, they tied him up to this steel fence thing using barbed wire, which is a perfectly normal thing to do. Oh, no, it's not. The long and the short of it is that at Hard to Kill, we are going to get a barbed wire massacre match. And can you imagine what these two are going to do to each other? Even on a random episode of Impact, they were just twonking each other away. it kind of gives me the fear and makes me feel a little bit scared in my tum-tum. But look, you got to hand it to them, and it was kind of a crazy end to Impact. You can have it up. But yes, we now built a Genesis on Saturday, and the week after that we built a Hard to Kill. I don't understand why Impact Wrestling needs so many special events, but hey ho, that's what they want to do. But this was fun enough. I had a good time. You can have it up. Now don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's episode of Impact, especially that Susan thing. I'm going to think about it for a while. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head over to WhatCulture.com, read, follow WhatCulture on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE, and watch more videos here by clicking that damn finger. My name is Simon from WhatCulture. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. And I may see you every single day of your damn life, because wrestling never stops.